What's up everyone, Tony here, and welcome to my third and final video breaking down the great Cyberpunk Megaton of June 2020. In part 1, we looked at the new trailer and Night City Wire Episode 1. In part 2, we looked at 25 plus minutes of B-roll footage from the game, giving us an even deeper look at Cyberpunk 2077's prologue. Here in part 3, would you believe me if I said this was the juiciest video of them all? Because it's true. Today we'll be taking a closer look at the absolute barrage of Cyberpunk 2077 text and video impressions directly from members of the press who were able to get 4 hours of hands-on time with the game. They were provided with an unrestricted demo that started from the very beginning of the game, which means the game's prologue consisting of 3 different life paths, a main story mission, and the Watson area of Night City was free for them to experience. I'm actually amazed at just how much there is, and the fact that I was still coming across new information from different members of the press as I was reading my 10th or 11th article on the game. It's clear that this 4-hour demo offered some wildly different experiences, and that's why I'm making this video. I'll attempt to tie all of these unique impressions together into one neat video. We'll look at story elements, customization options, world building, the combat system, various game mechanics, and so much more that the Night City Wire video didn't even touch on. On top of all that, we'll also take a look at some of the new screenshots and concept art released as well. While some of the screenshots give us a better idea of what these press impressions are describing, others seem to provide a glimpse at the game post-prologue, and that certainly is true for the concept art. So today we'll break down all those press impressions, new screenshots, and concept art, speculate until we can't speculate no more, and by the end, we're gonna know a lot more about this game than we did before. Get hype. Here we go. Simplifying over 10,000 words worth of notes. Good God. Let's not waste any more time and get right into it. With all of the different hands-on impressions provided over the last month, differing takes on various aspects of the game are to be expected. However, one thing seemed completely unanimous among everyone who spent some time playing the first 4 hours of Cyberpunk 2077. This world is absolutely gigantic, and the 4 hours spent with the game barely even scratched the surface. The size and scope of the game looks to rival, if not exceed, The Witcher 3. Walking out of V's apartment and exploring Watson, the area of Night City that we are limited to during the game's prologue, provided absolute sensory overload from the very first minute. The city is absolutely dripping with lore, something we've seen in the various gameplay clips, but also get a very clear look at with some of the concept art. CD Projekt Red is painstakingly creating posters like these to give depth to this world and the various brands that dominate it. Fictional cars, entertainment, clothing, foods, and weapons all have their own unique, fleshed out backstories, branding, and advertising. Bright colors and neon lights are everywhere, always drawing your attention in on something new with every step you take. Oppressive commercialism is a core component of the cyberpunk genre, and that is certainly a focus here in Night City. The atmosphere is real. This game is cyberpunk as hell, and we experience all the grittiness and retro-futuristic lived-in aesthetics that go with it. Then, of course, there's the people. The map is very densely populated, and there is seemingly always someone you can interact with on the screen at any given time. The city feels totally alive, no two NPC models are alike, and you can even follow them around to get an idea of their daily routine. If you're lucky, you might be there to experience a unique encounter or dialogue. Now, I didn't read any specific stories about NPC encounters like this, but on a related note, we did learn about how the passage of time works in this game. Cyberpunk 2077 features an absolutely insane passage of time equation, where 1 hour of time in real life equals 8 hours in the game's world. For reference, an hour in GTA 5 takes 2 minutes in real life. Much like in The Witcher 3, you could choose to move time forward at your own leisure, as some quests will actually need you to activate them at a certain time of day. But if not, a full 24-hour cycle in-game will require you waiting a whopping 3 hours of real time. Absolute insanity. So with that in mind, I have to ask, Does that mean these NPCs have a daily schedule they follow for that long? It would be hard to believe, but CD Projekt Red is clearly crazy when it comes to attention to detail, so who knows? We'll just have to wait and see when we get our hands on the game, and have nothing better to do than to follow random NPCs around for 3 hours. Speaking of NPCs, there was some chatter coming out of Night City Wire Episode 1 regarding the population density in certain shots of the game. It seemed lower than what we saw in the 2018 gameplay video. However, we've received multiple reports that the pedestrian count we saw in that video was in fact similar to the demo that was being played by the press here in 2020. If this demo is representative of the final game, then we can expect to see busy streets like this in Cyberpunk come November. Perhaps some of those emptier shots from the trailer were just less populated areas of the map, and it does appear that less people are out and about in the middle of the night. Either way, the word is there's no downgrade in population density based on hands-on impressions. Now, you may just follow one of those NPCs into a building, and that brings us to our next point, the verticality of Night City. We see a ton of high-rise buildings and skyscrapers in the screenshots and concept art. The hands-on impressions tell us we could enter damn near every building we see, and they are quite the sight to behold, with awesome architecture that is surprisingly fun to explore. I don't doubt that CD Projekt Red will pack these buildings with multiple fully explorable floors and rooms, and fill them up with lore, Easter eggs, and loot. But how do we get from building to building? Well, of course, we could just fast travel, which is triggered by visiting a subway station, and apparently have no load times at all. In fact, there seem to be no load times in the entire demo outside of the initial load itself. But most likely we'll be making our way around Night City by driving around. According to hands-on impressions, getting behind the wheel and driving around Night City is when you really experience how dense the design of the city is. Certainly a giant difference between this and the open fields Geralt and Roach often found themselves galloping across. It's really like a maze with all of the buildings, and it's quite easy to get lost at first. In fact, many who played the game came away feeling the driving controls were a bit punishing, but I do think that has a lot to do with simply not playing the game enough and not knowing how to handle all of the tight corners and spaces in the city. In time, I'm sure you could upgrade your vehicle to control better, and just simply playing the game more will have you memorizing the map and getting better at driving in general. Heck, this is still the prologue. I remember the beginning of GTA Vice City, where you primarily had access to really bad cars and vehicles, and it wasn't until you got a few hours in that the faster cars that controlled better started to really pop up, and that made a huge difference when it comes to driving controls. It's also been said that the driving controls will continue to be tweaked between now and launch, so here's hoping CD Projekt Red nails it come launch day, because fun and satisfying driving is of paramount importance in a city-based open-world game like Cyberpunk. At least while you learn how to drive, you can listen to some kick-ass music. To me, music is an incredibly important part of any game, and I definitely have some high expectations for a game literally called Cyberpunk. There's a certain tone that I hope they strike with this game's music, and impressions were very positive coming out of the demo event for both the score of the game itself and the various radio stations. There are over 12 distinct radio stations and a diverse selection of music spanning various different genres. So no, it won't just be a synthwave soundtrack. There's going to be a little bit of everything here, and music will be provided by both CD Projekt Red's sound team and famous artists of today. Please give me a radio station full of grimy house music. Now, driving around and listening to music is all well and good, but this is a city-based open-world game, and we're strapped. You know damn well what everyone is going to try and do the moment they take control of V, walk out of that apartment, and walk out on that street. Rampage time, baby. We've all played GTA. We all know how fun it is to just shoot a bunch of people and see how long we can survive while on the run. I know that's the first thing I would have tried if I was able to play this demo, and it seems like I wasn't the only one, because some members of the press did in fact try this. And yes, you can go on GTA-style rampages in Cyberpunk 2077. And like in GTA, there is a wanted level system of sorts. You could kill civilians, and if you do it enough, or do it near a cop, the authorities will be on your ass. You could jack cars as well, and that could get you a wanted level too, but amusingly enough, you can't actually steal a car unless you have a high enough body stat. I guess I know the first stat I'm leveling up when I get my hands on this game. At first, it sounds like the NCPD will attempt to go after you and reprimand you. If you get that wanted level higher, it sounds like Trauma Team can show up and will attempt to tase you for your transgressions. Finally, we have the equivalent of a 5-star wanted level. If you go that far with your crimes, Max Tac will show up, and we could actually get a little taste of how this squad looks with this screenshot. These guys are absolute monsters and will hunt your ass down and mess you up unless you got real police dodging skills under your belt. Eventually though, you'll probably get bored of aimlessly killing or driving around and listening to music. The time will come where you want to actually do something productive. So we could bring up our map, and from the sounds of things, there are quite a few markers on said map. Okay, that's an understatement. The map is absolutely littered with icons, which honestly is nothing new for anyone who has played Witcher 3. But yeah, remember that whole sensory overload thing I was talking about? This map and all those icons is not gonna help with that. And this is only some of the activities we'll come across from one area of Night City and the first 4 hours of the game. There is going to be no shortage of things to do in Cyberpunk. There's stuff happening everywhere. A lot of these points of interest are pretty self-explanatory, while others weren't really mentioned in the various press impressions because, again, 4 hours is simply not enough time to experience everything we see here. Most seem to represent various side quests or side activities that you could come across in this world. In other words, CD Projekt Red's specialty. You're definitely going to want to go out of your way to play through as many of these as you can to level up your various stats and make some money. We'll be introduced to new characters, tonally unique stories, and different styles of objectives that you wouldn't really experience if you only followed the golden path with main story missions. For example, you could engage in vigilante missions much like in the GTA games, helping the Night City Police Department track down dangerous criminals. You could scan NPCs to see if they have a warrant for their arrest, or straight up hunt bounties. While most of these icons represent static locations or characters you could always go visit, others seem to be dynamic, either moving around the map or just popping up in a spot randomly. We've got quite a few examples from the impressions. One player came across a random firefight between the Maelstrom gang and the NCPD. You could come across random crimes in progress or gang-on-gang violence as well. Other players encountered a dangerous cyber psycho roaming around the map. In the world of Cyberpunk 2077, cyber psychos have cyberpsychosis, which basically means they've lost their mind because they installed too many cybernetics. This roaming cyber psycho has decided he's gonna spend his time killing a bunch of cops. If you manage to track him down and take him out, you could take his high-powered sniper rifle that fires through walls. But that's nothing compared to by far my favorite random event. One player came across an NPC that was freaking out. Turns out, he got an implant for his penis, and the implant has malfunctioned. He is in extreme pain, and he needs you to take him to a Ripper doc immediately. Poor guy. Eventually, after all the fist fights and car races and guys with malfunctioning genitals, you're going to want to focus on a main job and make some progression through the game's main story. The mission the press got to play was the same one we all saw with the 48-minute gameplay demo. However, the game has changed quite a bit since 2018, and so too has this mission. It was described as a more fleshed out version of the mission we saw, so let's take a look and see what has changed. Also, given all the various optional tasks one can complete in any given mission, we've also learned about different ways to approach this mission, and we've learned some of the various different outcomes. We already saw Royce getting shot in the face in the trailer, which was a different outcome from the 48-minute video playthrough. But there's so much more. For instance, if you don't intervene right here, the gunfight will actually begin early between you, Jackie, and the Maelstrom gang. Game Informer explored a number of different possibilities with this mission. In their first time through, the Maelstrom gang demands that V pays double the original asking price. Frustrated, the player pulled out his gun and killed Royce during the back and forth dialogue, initiating an immediate combat sequence and skipping the boss fight that would otherwise come later. In a second playthrough, the player accepted the new terms, but at that moment, Militech storms into the building and kills off the Maelstrom gang members. However, this actually makes the escape even more difficult than normal, and you'll have to fight the Royce boss battle unless you use stealth and sneak past him entirely, which is also an option. In a third playthrough, they actually warn the Maelstrom gang about the virus-laced Cred chip, and they actually thank you and give you the spider bot. I can't believe that works. Finally, in a fourth playthrough, they straight up paid double the original price like requested, and you could get out of there with your spider bot and no shootout at all. Crazy. The amount of replayability these main story missions are going to have is just absurd. By the way, there's more. At some point during the mission, you could go a bit out of your way in the warehouse and come across the former Maelstrom gang leader trapped in a prison cell. If you choose to free him from the cell, he will show up again later in the story. Even earlier on, should you have the correct skills leveled up on your character, you could actually detect that Meredith has handed you a virus-infected chip in this scene, something that caught V by complete surprise in the 48-minute gameplay video. You now have a choice: continue with the mission and not bring it up, or tell Meredith here that you're well aware of her tricks. You ain't tricking me. If you choose to confront her about it, you'll actually get into an argument and she storms off, and you no longer get any help from her or Militech later in the mission. It's absolutely crazy how many ways this could go down, and this is all in the game's prologue. Also, while we're talking to Meredith here, I might as well bring it up now. It was confirmed that you can indeed romance Meredith. Apparently, the romances in this game are even more fleshed out and realistic than the ones we saw in Witcher 3 and have everything from one-night stands to longer relationships. I don't know why you'd want to with Meredith though. She's so mean. The biggest news from this demo is confirmation that indeed you can romance the legend herself, Judy. And here I just thought Cyberpunk was going to be the best game ever. Now it's confirmed. Best game ever confirmed. Now, something we haven't talked much about yet is the game's combat, and we definitely learned a lot about it from these impressions, so let's get into that now. I know the question I always ask when it comes to a new first-person shooter is, how does the shooting feel? More specifically, what other games does the shooting feel like? That's usually the best way to get an idea of what they're going for when it comes to gunplay. And I'm happy to say, we have an answer from various different members of the press. Indeed, the shooting in Cyberpunk 2077 feels a lot like Destiny. Well, actually, it feels more like Borderlands. Well, actually, it feels like Doom 2016. Well, actually, it doesn't feel like Doom 2016. Well, actually, it feels like Days. Well, actually, it feels like Chronicles of Riddick. Well, actually, it feels like Fallout 3. Okay, clearly, I'm kidding. Impressions are all over the place when it comes to comparisons with the shooting in other games. Such a thing like game feel and how shooting feels is so subjective from player to player that it's almost impossible to say for a game like this unless you get your hands on it and judge it for yourself. All of the character customization in this game only makes things even more muddy. I think this is a case where there's no real perfect comparison to another game that you can make. You're just gonna have to get your hands on the game, shoot around, try some different weapons, customize your character to your liking, and see how it goes. How about the driving? Well, it's like GTA. Okay, it's not really like GTA. It's like Watch Dogs. It's like Sleeping Dogs. Okay, enough. The impressions paint a similar picture when it comes to the driving. This is something that you simply have to try yourself. Some say the driving in Cyberpunk feels great. Others complained about it being too twitchy. To this day, I hear people arguing that the driving in GTA 4 is the best ever in an open world game. I always thought the cars handled like boats in that game, and GTA 5's driving was a massive improvement. Others strongly dislike the feel of driving in GTA 5. You get the picture. From everything I've seen so far, the driving in Cyberpunk looks fine, and much like with the shooting, I'm hoping customization options will allow us to tweak how the cars drive to our liking. But I don't think comparisons to other games can really be made at this point, especially with things like driving still being fine-tuned between now and release. One important thing to keep in mind though, is a lot of the press played this Cyberpunk demo via streaming. Apparently some played over GeForce Now, but there were also some streaming problems at times, and some were forced to switch over to Parsec. Either way, there is an inherent lag factor when it comes to playing a game like this over a streaming service, and some precision is going to be lost, something that's obviously very important when judging the feel of combat or driving. Nonetheless, impressions of the combat were pretty positive, especially considering how early this slice of the game is. You can equip 3 guns at a time, and in addition to the expected pistols, rifles, and shotguns, players got to experience non-traditional weapons as well. Smart guns with self-guided missiles, powerful tech weapons that pierce armor, the powerful sniper rifle the Cyber Psycho was using, and don't forget a katana. In sword, knife, or melee combat, you can actually parry attacks. If timed properly, you'll perform a counterattack, so keep that in mind if you want to go gun-free and deal massive damage to your foes. Speaking of gun-free, we also received confirmation that you can indeed do a full pacifist run of the game. No killing at all, though I figure you'll have to be stealth as hell with smart use of quick hacks to actually make that work. Give it a try if you have the patience. The more you use a specific item, the more it will level up, which again just tells you that a 4-hour demo that covers the beginning of this game isn't going to paint a great picture of the game's combat. It's simply not a full realization of the game's combat system. If you love to use shotguns and you use shotguns primarily for the first 20 hours of the game, that thing is going to be super fast and super satisfying compared to its original form. Not to mention all of the character upgrades and perks and cyberware you can install to make movement a lot more fun and fluid. And now that we're on the topic of leveling things up and customization, I think it's about time we dive into all of the various customization options we've learned about with this round of impressions. And boy, is there a lot. We've probably learned more about character customization than any other single aspect of this game, so let's dive right into it. Cyberpunk 2077 is a city-based, crime-based, open-world game, but it's also, first and foremost, a role-playing game, even more so than The Witcher 3. We had our fair share of customization when it came to Geralt's look and overall playstyle, but that is nothing compared to what we could do here in Cyberpunk with V. And the sheer breadth of character customization is something deliberately included by CD Projekt Red to differentiate this game from the Witcher series. Freedom is a major focus here. How will you upgrade yourself? What weapons will you use, and will you craft custom weapons or pack standard weapons with various mods? What cyberware will you have installed, and in a more cosmetic sense, how will you express yourself fashion-wise? These are questions CD Projekt Red wants the player to be asking themselves. On top of freedom, the other focus is flexibility. One of the players at Game Informer initially intended to play through the game as a hacker and focus on stats like intelligence that would make hacking more effective. But about halfway through his play session, he realized hacking was hella lame and popping fools with a shotgun was a whole lot more fun. So he was able to easily pivot to this new playstyle and began focusing more on the body stat, which helped develop this new build. You could start the game thinking you're gonna do a pacifist run, and then it's easy as hell to turn around and say screw it, I'm going full Grey Fox and killing everyone in absolutely brutal fashion with a sword. That's your call, and CD Projekt Red has designed the game in such a way that this freedom and flexibility is available to you at all times. It is a gargantuan task to break down all of the new details we've learned about character customization from these impressions, but I'm going to give it a shot. There are systems on systems on systems at play here, and honestly, it's overwhelming. But we need to learn all this stuff and be ready for launch day. I think we need some kind of diagram to keep track of all this stuff and all the various branching paths you could go down, so let's begin building it, and I'll start right from the top. The first options you're given at the very beginning of the game, the selection of one of 3 life paths, and the starting look of your V. We'll get into the life paths in a few minutes when we look closer at the story stuff we learned in this round of impressions. So right now, let's look at the character builder from the beginning of the game and how we'll be able to customize the look of our character here in Cyberpunk 2077. After choosing a female or male look for V, we get into our ridiculously detailed character builder, and hilariously, I feel like this is what made the most headlines out of the entire blowout of Cyberpunk 2077 information. The reason why will become clear in just a second. We are given the option of 6 different skin tones, 17 eyes including the option of heart, skull, or cross-shaped irises, 7 eye colors, 8 bits of eye makeup, 35 hairstyles, hair color, 8 eyebrows and their color, facial hair and its color, 17 mouths, 17 jaws, 5 bits of lip makeup or none, cheek makeup, long nails, short nails, the color of your nails, 17 ears, 11 piercings or none at all, 8 types of surface wiring or none at all, 9 types of scars, 2 types of body scars, 6 types of tattoos, 5 types of body tattoos, and that's just the boring stuff. Because here in Cyberpunk 2077, that's not enough customization to adequately express yourself. So, CD Projekt Red has given us the option of choosing between 3 types of nipples, 2 types of penis, circumcised or uncircumcised, penis size, 1 type of vagina, no genitalia at all, and of course, 5 styles of pubic hair. My God. The absolute mad lads over at CD Projekt Red. I think Red Dead Redemption 2's realistic horse testicles have finally been topped when it comes to sheer absurdity. Doesn't seem like you get to choose your butt cheek type though. That would have been nice. Come on, CD Projekt Red, get it together. Give us some options here. Only 1 vagina type? I hope this is rectified between now and launch. We need at least 5 vagina shapes. Anyways, once you define your appearance, the fun doesn't end when it comes to cosmetics. In fact, we're only just getting started because now it's time to get dressed, and we seem to have a ton of options at our disposal. As I mentioned before, fashion is a big time focus here in the world of Cyberpunk, and that makes me happy because I love dressing up my characters with swag ass shit in all of my games. This round of new video, screenshots, and concept art has my mind running absolutely wild with ideas for dressing up my V. Like, look at some of these characters. This fashion is incredible, and I could only pray we'll be able to customize V with clothes that look this cool. It's clear the artists behind this game have some killer style, and I can't wait to see it realized with my V. I know I'll be riding a bike around as much as possible so I could get that sweet third-person view of my character. We've only gotten a small taste of the confirmed clothing options for V, but given how ridiculously fleshed out that character builder is, I could only assume we'll have hundreds of different options at our disposal, fitting all shapes, sizes, and styles. Look at some of these NPCs for instance. They seem to have entirely converted their bodies into chrome, and it looks cool as hell. Will V eventually have the option at some point during the game to do the same thing? Bear with me here. Bald hair, no genitals, fully silver chrome skin. Playable Silver Surfer, let's go. Don't screw me on this, CD Projekt Red. Or if they really want to give us some freedom when it comes to customization, there should be a retro store from the 20th century with 1990s clothes. Can I be normcore? No cyberware, normal hair. Can I rock the Jerry Seinfeld? That would be incredible. Pure cyberpunk, not giving a shit what anyone thinks. Imagine walking around this world looking like this. Come on. One thing's for sure, I can't wait to go out and find rare outfits and pieces of clothing, because if this art is anything to judge by, there's going to be some awesome stuff included in the game. So finally, we create our base character and complete the initial prologue sequence, which is different depending on the life path you choose. Eventually, for all 3 life paths, we wake up in our apartment and are now free to go out and explore Night City. Now it is time to engage with the various different activities on this map screen and level our V up, level up our stats, make money, and buy various upgrades. It all stems from one thing though, our character's main level. The standard leveling procedure was something we got a good look at in the B-roll footage. You are gaining different types of XP all the time for performing various different actions, using certain weapons, and of course, completing tasks. In the end, finishing a mission will score you a big chunk of XP. Leveling up will allow you to use new gear, new weapons, and of course, take on more difficult missions and progress further in the game. But the real goal here is the attribute point and perk point that you'll sometimes score when you level up. Unfortunately, the press have confirmed that you don't get these points every time you level up, but sometimes you level up and you get points. Fun! With those attribute points, you can upgrade one of your 5 main attributes: body, intelligence, reflexes, technical, and cool. Gotta level up my cool, bro. Now, we got a glimpse of these main attributes and the character skill tree in the 15-minute deep dive video, but these impressions give us an even more detailed look inside of the insanely complex and intricate level up system in Cyberpunk 2077. First off, we've learned that these 5 main attributes can be leveled all the way up to 20, which means maxing them all out will require you to hit at least level 100 for your main character level. Each attribute branches out into corresponding skills, and then each of those skills branch even further out into 5 perks. There's 20 to 30 perk options per skill, and you can unlock and equip them with perk points. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot. But man, am I hyped to get my hands on this thing and just start experimenting. To level up a skill, just do the thing. For instance, if you slice a bunch of dudes with blades, you get Blades XP, and you'll level up that skill. Keep in mind that the level of each skill is capped by the level of the corresponding attribute. So if you want to be the god of blades, be prepared to spend your attribute points on reflexes. The body attribute focuses mainly on close quarters combat, health, and stamina. It breaks out into 4 skills: shotguns, two-handed, melee, and athletics. The first 3 are pretty straightforward for a build that's focused on close quarters combat, but what about athletics? Well, that seems to be the skill that increases your health and stamina, which sounds pretty damn important to me. Some of the unlockable athletics perks sound pretty key for any build in Cyberpunk and have effects like slowly regenerates health in combat, lets you shoot while sprinting, sliding, and jumping at the same time, and doubles carrying capacity. And of course, as we know, leveling up body will allow you to steal cars. Those kind of sound like game changers to the way the entire game plays, so I'd say definitely focus on body if you want some overall quality of life bonuses for your build. The intelligence attribute only breaks out into 1 skill, hacking. But if you want a more stealthy build, this is an important skill to pay attention to. We saw how effective hacking can be in the 15-minute deep dive video. If leveled up and the right perks unlocked, you could go around hacking devices, security systems, enemy turrets, and enemy cyberware itself, all to your advantage. It also seems like leveling up hacking and equipping the right perks will allow you to use more powerful quick hacks, again allowing you to take out enemies with ease and no bullets wasted. The reflexes attribute focuses on coordination and speed, and leveling it up will allow for perks like faster dodging and a higher chance of landing a critical hit. It breaks off into 3 skills: handguns, rifles, and blades, and I figure at least one of those will probably come in handy for most players out there. One perk for the rifle skill dramatically increases damage the further you are from the target. So if you want to snipe fools in Cyberpunk 2077, reflexes is an important attribute to consider. Next up is cool, and who doesn't want to level up their cool? Come on, that's the best that I've ever seen. The cool attribute is tied directly with stealth and breaks out into 3 skills: assassination, nerve, and sniper rifles. Leveling up your cool and equipping cool perks will allow you to move faster while sneaking, take enemies longer to actually detect you when you're in their line of sight, and I could only imagine one of those sniper rifle perks will give you a more steady hand while aiming, because that's what cool guys do. Finally, we have technical, which is a bit of a weird attribute, but seems pretty neat all the same. Technical breaks out into the engineering skill, and basically the perks you equip here have a variety of different uses. Some are kinda defensive based. For example, one makes you immune to the effects of your own grenades. Another reduces explosion damage by 10%. However, you could also equip a perk that makes the explosion radius of grenades visible, which we saw in the B-roll. The technical attribute also has ties to craftable loot. One perk allows you to loot drones, robots, and mechs, and gives you a 30% chance of finding weapon parts. Another allows you to take the mods off a weapon that you find. In the end, technical does actually sound pretty useful for those loot-related perks at the very least. Get used to this screen, Cyberpunks. You're going to be staring at it a lot in your adventures through Night City. I actually don't think it's too confusing once you really stare at it for a while and comprehend what you're looking at. But in the end, it's gonna just take a lot of experimentation and trial and error. But eventually, you'll find the skills and perks that are right for you. I can't wait to mess around with all of them and just see what crazy stuff we'll be able to pull off with a fully maxed out V equipped with the most powerful perks. Oh, you thought we were done with the character customization stuff? Not even close. Another key stat that levels up every time you complete a mission is your street cred, which is basically your notoriety in Night City. With increased street cred, new missions become unlocked, you'll actually get better prices from various different vendors, and new weapons will become available to buy. Fixers will even contact you instead of the other way around if your street cred is high enough. So with all this money we're making from clearing missions, we could buy weapons, we could buy clothing, but come on. The star of the Cyberpunk 2077 universe seems to be cyberware. I mean, who doesn't want superpowers? That's basically what you're getting here with cyberware. New abilities, new perks, and they all sound powerful and flashy as hell. Like Mantis Blades, for instance, or a reflex device that is basically witch time from Bayonetta, putting everything into slow motion when you successfully dodge an attack. We learned a lot of cool new tidbits regarding cyberware with these press impressions. First, some specifics. When you visit a Ripper Dock, you could have up to 20 cyberwares installed into your body. 3 in the brain, 1 for your eyes, 3 for your cardiovascular system, 2 for your immune system, 2 for your nervous system, 3 for your skin, 1 for your operating system, and then your left arm, left hand, left leg, and right leg. That's 20 in total. We have 5 tiers of cyberware: common, uncommon, rare, epic, and legendary, and the higher up that list we get, the more slots a certain cyberware will likely take up. They also come in 3 different activation types: passive, like a circulatory system upgrade that recovers health anytime you kill someone; active, such as the leg upgrade that allows you to double jump at any time; and triggered, like a reflex upgrade that activates slow motion when your health falls below a certain level. Cyberware can also come in handy in making up for attributes you haven't leveled up yet, like the Gorilla Hand cyberware that vastly improves your melee strength, or Sin Lungs that dramatically improves your stamina regeneration. The possibilities with cyberware are endless, and I can't wait to see what some of those legendary abilities are like once installed. Finally, let's talk a bit about the game's crafting system, which was detailed for the press as well. Going around Night City, you will come across components and blueprints, which could be used for crafting. Now, you could craft little things that could be used as upgrades for your weapons, like scopes, silencers, grenades, and stat increases for armor, such as higher defense or higher chance of landing a critical hit. But CD Projekt Red assures us the crafting system goes much further than these basic upgrades. We've learned that some of the rarer armor and weapons in the game are made from finding the right blueprints and then tracking down the required crafting items. We've also learned that you can unlock crafting perks, including one that increases the sales price of all your items by 25%. But perhaps the most important of these crafting perks allows you to mod one of your clothing items to have a higher armor stat. The idea behind this is to let you dress your V however you like, while also keeping your stats high enough to keep up with the higher level enemies as you make your way through the game. I love this decision, and I hope the process is as painless as possible to let me dress however I want, while also retaining the higher stats and overall effectiveness from another piece of clothing I've collected or crafted. Also, the items on your gear screen are categorized in 6 different quality levels: ordinary, unusual, rare, epic, legendary, and iconic. Got all that? Good. See? Character customization in Cyberpunk 2077 made easy. Simple. You'll be a Cyberpunk expert in no time. There's one more thing we haven't talked about yet when it comes to character customization, and it's the very first thing you choose when starting up the game. One of 3 life paths. But since we are getting into spoilery story content, I saved it for last, so if you don't want to hear about any story-related content, even the very beginning of the game, feel free to turn the video off now. We'll be going into further detail than we did in the B-roll video, thanks to the wonderful coverage in Game Informer magazine, which gives an awesome first-person recounting of each of the 3 life paths introductory sequences. I highly recommend giving that issue a read if you want a more detailed idea of the story being told with the 3 life paths. But for today, I'll simplify it all down. The world of Cyberpunk 2077 is bleak. People dramatically altering their bodies is a regular, everyday occurrence. If that's not enough, they enter virtual mindscapes for escapism, almost literally escaping their own body and living out someone else's life. And the mega corporations dominate, tracking your every move and thought, killing for profits without any consequence. The heroes of this world are born in the underground. Outlaw edge runners stay off the radar and out of these corporations' reach, making use of black market tech implants and leveraging connections with others like them to shape their own destiny. You take control of V, a cyberpunk, and it's now up to you to make your mark on this massive, massive world. While much of the game's story is still unclear, the press was able to get a very close look at the opening 4 hours of V's adventure. And it's during this time that 3 unique introductory sequences play out, each setting a different tone for your story. Depending on the life path you choose, you will play as a V with different life experiences, a different perspective on the world, start in a different place, speak to different people, and experience different events. The question is, just how far-reaching is this choice that you make at the beginning of the game? Well, given how many possible endings we saw in The Witcher 3, it wouldn't surprise me if your chosen life path actually has an impact on the very end of the game. However, CD Projekt Red made it clear to the press that one should not stress when choosing a life path, literally the very first choice in a game that is packed to the absolute brim with player choice. While the introductory sequence is pretty drastically different depending on the life path you choose, they all ultimately come together and V finds himself in the same place and the same situation no matter which one you choose. We've seen unique life path dependent dialogue choices appear even in clips from later in the game, choices that reflect the unique attitudes of the three Vs. But it sounds like the rest of your adventure changes only slightly depending on your life path and won't result in some dramatically different experience beyond the intro. Of course, we won't know the specifics of what is different until we get our hands on the full game, but one thing's for sure. The intro is totally unique and of varying lengths, depending on your choice of Street Kid, Corpo, or Nomad. Street Kid V has grown up living a tough life in the mean streets of Haywood. He had to work hard for everything, but has now made it through and has his street smarts to thank for it. Now he's looking to move up in life, but first, a drink. Street Kid V is such an alcoholic that he's become close friends with the bartender, who often gives him free drinks if he does him the occasional favor. And that's how this story really kicks off. The bartender asks V to square his debts with the local info broker, Kirk Sawyer. And this is when we get into material covered in the trailer and B-roll. Sawyer isn't willing to help the bartender unless V does a favor for him. Now you're caught in the middle of these two. Kirk says if V could jack the rare Rayfield Erendite for him, he'll wipe the slate clean for V's bartender buddy. So off you go. But on the way to the job, V runs into another old friend named Padre. Padre is another experienced fixer from Haywood, and V decides to fill him in on the job he's in the middle of. Then we see the events of the B-roll footage take place. Just as V is about to jack the car, Jackie shows up, who was Padre's driver and overheard the entire story. The cops show up and V is knocked out. When he comes to, he finds himself next to Jackie, who must have found a way to keep both of them alive. The two talk for a bit and realize they have a lot in common, the same goals and the same enemies. So they become partners and the Street Kid prologue ends. Nomad V lives in the Badlands outside of Night City and has been on his own for a long time. Most other nomads travel in clans, but not him. Unable to make ends meet any longer, he decides to accept a big delivery job that will finally bring him into Night City. On the way to the job, his car breaks down, which is why he ends up in this garage here. V misses the meetup, but is still eventually able to locate Jackie in a trailer, and he has the goods. It appears to be something in cryo-freeze. Now, the two need to find a way to smuggle it into Night City. When crossing the border, it's pretty much normal practice to pay off the guards and have them look the other way. However, Jackie decides to pull a fast one and hold on to the bribe. V is taken into a room, and money is exchanged. But moments later, V realizes he's been had. The guard ratted them out for some extra cash, and Arasaka goons have shown up to ruin V and Jackie's party. After the high-speed shootout we see in the B-roll, V and Jackie manage to shake their pursuers and hide out in a garage. At this point, V can't help but take a peek at what exactly is inside this package, and he discovers an iguana alive and well. In 2077, there are very few animals actually still alive, so this thing is super valuable. Now that V is in Night City, he realizes he won't be able to survive here on his own like he did in the Badlands. Jackie did save his ass back there, so they become partners, and the Nomad prologue ends. Corpo V is on top of the world. He's rich, he's privileged, and he works for the Arasaka Corporation. In fact, you actually begin the game at Arasaka Tower if you choose Corpo. Sure, he's a little stressed from all the work, which is why he's staring in a mirror and throwing up, but it's all good. Then V heads into his boss's office, Jenkins. This dude helped V get to his position in the company, but now V fears he's gonna end up getting him killed. We see Jenkins in his giant office watching a European Space Council conference. Suddenly, the figures on the screen start screaming in pain, and their cybernetic implants begin burning and exploding. This is a moment we've already seen glimpses of in past trailers, and it's Jenkins' handiwork. It sounds like the vote that was about to take place would have severed a deal between this Space Council and Arasaka, so Jenkins took matters into his own hands to buy some time. Jenkins immediately gets a call from his superior, Abernathy. She is pissed as the cover-up for this little stunt is going to cost a fortune. But Jenkins couldn't care less. He's been planning this move for a while and quietly working against Abernathy. At that moment, Jenkins hands a shard to V, who plugs it into the port in his head. Jenkins has all of Abernathy's information, and now it's clear what his intent is. Jenkins wants V to take her out. He hands V a stack of eddies to go out and hire some additional muscle. So he decides to meet up with an old friend, Jackie, who is at Lizzie's bar. As we saw in the B-roll footage, V takes Jenkins' personal AV down to the bar and meets with Jackie to discuss the job. But just as they begin talking, Arasaka goons storm the dance floor. Abernathy must have known about Jenkins' behind-the-scene antics the entire time, and now it's V's life on the line. With one wordless command, Corpo V loses everything. All the money in his accounts go down to zero, his mods go dark, and he loses the stock ticker that was in his periphery. His brain goes into withdrawal from all the hormone stabilizers blinking off. But before they capture V's nearly lifeless body, Jackie steps in. If they want to get to V, they gotta go through him. In classic bad guy fashion, they decide to take off, figuring V is dead anyways, or worse, poor. However, while V's accounts were wiped out, Arasaka missed the hard eddies V was carrying that Jenkins gave to him. It's not much, but it's enough to at least keep on living here in Night City. V is eternally grateful that Jackie stepped in at the last second, literally saving his life. So they become partners, and the Corpo prologue ends. As you can see, all three Lifepath prologue sequences end with V and Jackie more or less in the exact same spot. Then we experience a time jump, and the No Future elevator opens on the mission we saw from the 48-minute gameplay demo. After finishing this short mission, you wake up in your apartment and the game begins to truly open up. We are now free to explore Night City and experience everything I've been going over in this video. Wow. Now, this demo did only cover the prologue, so not too much new information has come out regarding the main story, or the events that take place after V's fateful encounter with Dex Deshawn. However, a few tidbits have come up here and there in interviews and through CD Projekt Red's Twitter. These tweets add a bit of context to the gorgeous concept art CD Projekt Red has been releasing, and gives us an idea of what we could expect from the various districts of Night City we'll be able to explore once the prologue is over and we could leave the Watson area. Westbrook is considered by many to be the best place to live and have fun in Night City. If you've got eddies, you come here to spend them. And if you don't, well, take out a loan and pretend you're on top of the world, even for just one glorious night. The city center is Night City's corporate showcase. Sleek skyscrapers form a brutalist fortress-like skyline presenting the unrivaled power of megacorps in all its arrogance. Since 2020, the city center has become the most fortified and secure part of Night City. Santo Domingo is one of Night City's oldest districts. Corporations use it as a testing ground for industrial projects, destroying old factories just to build new ones, while residents scrape a desperate living in crowded mega buildings, wishing for something better. Haywood is a neighborhood of contrast, from modern skyscrapers and parks in the north to dangerous, inhospitable slums in the south. It's the biggest bedroom in Night City, where gangs like Valentino's and 6th Street get down to business, legal and illegal alike. Sparsely populated by nomads, the Badlands are the vast plains outside of the city proper. Unchecked resource extraction, burning oil fields, rampant pollution, this district makes Night City feel like a rich oasis. But it holds golden opportunities for those in the know. Finally, we have Pacifica. Pacifica could have been Night City's money-making vacation resort, but once the investment dried up, it became a husk left to rot. Now, instead of tourists, the district is overrun by gangs and violence, with the Voodoo Boys protecting the community forsaken by NCPD. We got a closer look at Pacifica in the 15-minute deep dive video, and in that video, we also got a look at cyberspace, which is a gameplay element of Cyberpunk 2077 that is still shrouded in mystery. Pal Sasko clarified a bit with Game Informer. He tells us that only the most experienced netrunners will visit cyberspace, and you'll be doing so multiple times throughout the game's story. You'll meet new people and unlock mysteries on how it was made, how it came to be, and how exactly it works. But that's all he was willing to give us without going into spoilers. I think at long last, that's going to wrap it up for today. This game is insane. But going through all this info gets me so hyped. There's still more, by the way, like the fact that we pretty much got confirmation from Pal Sasko himself that Siri makes a cameo in this game, and that we should keep our eyes open for the Witcher 3 Easter eggs in Night City. But I have to stop this video somewhere, or I'll go for another hour just dropping random, useless facts about the game. Like how you can see your shoes if you look down. You can see them! Damn it, you can see them! I'm sure I missed some stuff, but we have a lot of time to kill between now and launch, so I'm sure that info will come up in another upcoming Cyberpunk video here on the channel. I just got the new World of Cyberpunk guidebook in the mail, and I know there's a ton of juicy new information in there, so look forward to some videos that look at that content soon. Also, Night City Wire Episode 2 has aired as I was completing this gigantic video, so expect coverage of that very, very soon. If you like this video and want to see more fun Cyberpunk 2077 coverage and videos like this one, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Between the new Red Dead Online and GTA Online updates, and the quickly approaching launch of Cyberpunk 2077, 2020 is starting to get really busy around here. But I love it. So look forward to lots of new content here on the channel. Until next time, thanks so much for watching everyone, and take care.